Early the next morning, we drive out to each of our collection sites, and each individual trap is collected and taken back to our lab so we can see what goodies we caught during the night. The first thing we have to do with the trap after we bring it back to our lab is dump out all of its contents and begin the sometimes arduous process of sorting out the moths and counting up the numbers of the focal species we caught that night. We take a few representatives for each of the species present that we caught last night and place them in one of these, a hydration chamber. The chamber keeps the moths moist and humid, which allows for the moths to stay fresh for pinning. The rest of the insects are sorted into bags and placed in the freezer for storage. After sorting, we get to pin the moths. Pinning moths this way allows for easy identification because it gives us a chance to see the many varied patterns that can adorn the wings of a moth. You should see the pinning process right now. Here on a special pinning board, multiple moths from a collection site are pinned. The tough part of this process is using those thin pinning needles to maneuver the fragile moth wings into a spread out position. After being pinned and dried, a spread moth will look something like this. Once a moth has been pinned and spread, all that is left to do is enter it into our database. In our database, we collect info on the species collected, the date and location where it was collected, and several other useful bits of info. After entering a particular moth's info into our database, that moth has now become a useful data point that we can use in our phenology analyses. After being entered into our database, our moth is ready to be shelved and put into our collection. Our lone moth has journeyed from the collection site through the sorting process, survived the pinning process intact, been entered into the database to end up here in our shelf. And thus is the journey of a moth through our lab.